Casper van Vliet, Senior Consultant at DNP. And as the invitation mentioned, it's how to simplify disaster recovery and save the day. I think that's one of the important things for backup admins to do. We've been making backups for ages now, and we see that in the current time with ransomware and all kinds of uncertainties, it's important to have your data ready in case of disaster. We also see that at our customers. There's a daily risk of data loss, and it's been increasing the last 12 months by the impact of ransomware. Last year, we had a small survey at our customers asking about what is your impact on ransomware? How does ransomware impact your business? And we got 25% of companies that stated, yeah, we had ransomware, and there were a few companies that really where it had a really serious impact. The past 12 months, we see that it is increased to around 52%, and that's also what we hear around us, and we see in the media that ransomware attacks and stealing data is an increasing risk for companies. And this is, as we see, on top of the regular data loss scenarios, as we know, like damages, fire, power and cooling, etc., etc. And that's why we think it's important to have a data disaster recovery strategy. Because on top of all these errors and these attacks and these dangers, we also see that the workforce is more distributed than ever. So we see that people are working at home. Cloud is being introduced in all kinds of businesses, and the adoption of Teams and Office 365 means that you have more spots to manage the data and to make it available again. Also, the speed of business, and we all see that companies are at a really stress level to cope with business and to deliver the services to the customers, mainly also because a lot of companies are struggling to get the right people on board to cope with all the work. Also, the cloud mandate being oppressed by the board of a lot of companies, but also within strategic initiatives of companies to move to cloud or to adopt cloud technology means that you have multiple spots where you store your data, and how are you going to restore it, or especially going to disaster recovery from it if a cloud goes down or your on-premise system is not available. Also, the increased threats of hacks and ransomware, we see it as a really steep curve happening all around us. Our customers, not yet customers who are really struggling to recover from these attacks. And a lot of companies and a lot of people are talking about disaster recovery, but everybody states in the next phrase after that it's really expensive, not only in material, but also in time and in embedding it into the procedures of your organization. And you can create a disaster recovery plan and a scenario and test it one time, but that doesn't cut it. You need to have multiple sessions throughout the year to test your recovery, because IT is adopting, IT is changing, and you need to embed that changes into your disaster recovery platform. Yeah.
Not sure, but we still see the first page of the presentation.
Excuse me. Sorry. Well, let me see. This was the first page, and this was what I was talking about. To go to the next page, I hope everybody sees a table now. What we see is that a lot of companies have different applications, and they're all require different recovery strategies, mainly because app criticality. We see that around 20 to 25% of applications are business critical or mission critical. Think about an enterprise resource program or a CRM or a mail system for that matter, databases. It's between the 20 and 33% of applications within a company, and data loss is not allowed or allowed at a minimum level, and recovery, it needs to be up and running instantly. More and more processes within companies are stated business critical or important, and not a lot of companies know exactly what the impact is of a certain application. You think, okay, a small information system is not that where we have things about personal information of people. This is a lot of companies think, oh, that's not important. But we see that in a case of an emergency or in a disaster, all that kind of information is important. So the way we talk to customers is one of the first steps is to emphasize that knowing what all the process and their impact on business, and talk to all the business owners and the application owners on what the impact might be if their application is not available in certain scenarios. A lot of customers see that they're getting responses from business where they say, hey, I didn't expect that this application was that important. So in most cases, we see that a few minutes or up to a few hours is the maximum time where an application cannot be available. And in the same questionnaire we have with customers, or the meetings we have with customers, everybody's talking about disaster recovery, but less than 25% have a actual disaster recovery plan, and are measuring it at their own SLAs for recovery. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's click on the right one. That's where we want to emphasize that there are some key business impacts on a lot of current disaster recovery strategies, where companies say, hey, I can't do it. I can't have that DR strategy in place because of, well, a lot of arguments that we hear a lot, that there are a lot of different solutions around there. With you need one solution for a very low latency replication technology, you need another solution for backup. You want to leverage snapshots. That's also mainly in another storage system that you're using, and a lot of those processes take a lot of data volume. If you look at backup, it takes a lot of data if you want to have a longer retention. But if you have another process running for replication, it takes another additional set of data volume that you need to manage. So we see it ballooning in your storage systems or in your secondary storage systems. In most cases, we have a lot of customers where we do disaster recovery services. We see that at the start point, when we initiate a disaster recovery plan and test it, we see that there is in the beginning a lot of errors going around. You need a lot of time and effort to have it all in place, in time, with the right dependencies, etc., etc. So you need to put a lot of effort in it to have it smoothly run according to your disaster recovery plan. There's a lot of manual intervention needed. We write it down in DR runbooks, but well, software changes over time. Somebody changes jobs. So there are a lot of things that were initially automated that need to be manually intervened during a test or an actual disaster recovery. And last but not least, it's an expensive hobby, disaster recovery, not only because of the multiple vendors you need to have in place for the solution, but also all the parallel infrastructure or cloud infrastructure or reservations at clouds to have it all in place and work at any time that you need it to be available. So it can be a very expensive one. How we look at it together with Cohesity is at first we talk about consolidating the backup infrastructure. You look at the current state of the market of backup solutions. We see that there are a few companies that are leveraging appliances, but most technology is still driving around a piece of software, a media server or multiple media servers, a management server, a few proxies that you need to consolidate data or fan out data, target storage. And if you want to have it in cloud, you need to have all those stuff virtually run in the cloud. What we do with the Cohesity solution is that we consolidate it into one platform, and within that platform, all those parts are embedded within the solution, and the solution can be an on-prem physical solution based on appliances, or within the cloud, also a single software solution run on a VMware on a virtual environment. After this consolidation of the backup infrastructure, we can also consolidate all kinds of other workloads. And we have the backup data. Hey, why don't we use this same platform for disaster recovery? Or if you have a copy of your data, you can use it for dev test or analytics. The platform that Cohesity is offering is also a storage NAS environment where you can consolidate files and objects inside the same platform as you use for all the other data tasks. The important thing is that you need to manage it with a global management interface. In Cohesity terms, it's called Helios, where you can manage all these different processes without having to switch to different interfaces, and do it from one interface, one umbrella interface of all the applications or services that you're running on. How does the technology work, or how is the architecture working? It's the Cohesity Data Platform, which is a software-defined web skill platform. It was designed by Mohit Aaron, one of the lead engineers of the Google File System, also a patent holder, and he used this technology, this web skill technology, to build their own Cohesity file system and Cohesity software, with the ability to have management run on all the systems, and that if one of the systems is not available, the other system within the cluster can take over the processes seamlessly to continue operation and have it scale at any time you need without disruptance. That's one of the keys of a web scale platform. It was purposely built for file data and for storing data in massive amounts, and it is working on its own appliances that Cohesity is delivering as part of the solution, but also a large scale of reference architecture partners like HP, Cisco, Lenovo, Supermicro, Dell. All these companies offer reference architecture hardware that is able to run the Cohesity software. Cohesity is a software company, so they don't build their own hardware. They source it from the market. That means that the software can also run in a virtual mode or even as a cloud operation. And on top of that, there's the Helios management environment, which is in most cases a SaaS environment that not only offers the management of multiple systems that you have in the field as a company, or that you have on-prem. It also offers additional functionality like reporting, like ransomware detecting and scanning, like some new features that Cohesity is adding in Fort Knox. I will, at the end of the presentation, I will show you something about that. And in most cases, it's a SaaS environment, but if that's a problem, it's also possible to run this single management interface privately on your own environment and to have it not be connected to internet or anything else, only to manage your on-premises systems or systems within your own data center environments. And the nice thing about the Cohesity data platform is that there's a single platform with a single management interface. And what they did is on top of this data storage platform, you are able to run applications and services. So they created a marketplace. You can take a look at it at the Cohesity marketplace, type it into Google, and you see that they added applications that can do something with the data, that can index, that can show who's accessing what information at what share. You can create reports. There are some integration with antivirus vendors, with Splunk, with Varonis for compliancy. So this marketplace can run intelligent processes on top of the system and use the data that's being stored on the system for these additional functionalities. So you can bring, you don't have to bring the data to the application, you can bring the application to the data. So that is in a nutshell the Cohesity data management platform. A little bit more about the Cohesity as a company. It was founded in 2013 by Mohit Aron, and as I was mentioning, it's a patented web-scale multi-cloud platform. It's a mouthful, and it was built from the ground up with all the things you need in a 21st century solution around storing data and backup. So everything is zero trust designed from a security perspective. It uses machine learning and all kinds of massive calculating processes. Cohesity runs that on their Helios environment to do the ransomware checking. And it can run on different systems, physical, virtual as a SaaS, self-managed, or completely as a service. Well, not also important to mention, it's one of the leaders in the Gartner backup and restore magic quadrant. I see there's a slight error in the slide. So it's a serious company with a serious solution, and we've been working with them for the past 4 years with very good success. We had some very interesting customers that are currently using the technology. What's important is it has a design where cybersecurity is integrated, but also rapid recovery made possible. And we see that it's always on a scale. If you want to have it really secure with a lot of functionality, with a lot of processes checking it for inconsistency or for ransomware, we see that you have to pay a price on the rapid recovery part. But Cohesity has a very interesting balance created with their solution. If we take the circle around, we see that, as you can expect from a serious backup environment, that it reduces the attack surface by having it as a single platform with their own file system that they isolate it from the rest of the network. So it's not a CIFS share or an NFS share that you can browse or attack. And to reduce this attack surface, you can restrict access to all kinds of users, deploy the users within roles that you have in a role-based access model. You can use multi-factor authentication and, as they call it, core and protected operations, which means you can have business logic workflows where you can say, hey, I want to delete this backup, but there are 2 or 3 people within the company or security officer or DPO that needs to approve this action. And you can put that on all the processes within the Cohesity environment, like restoring data, need a 4i or even a 6i principle in being able to do certain tasks, which is very important because within enterprise environments, you see a lot of people working with really sensitive data, and well, people go from one employer to another. So you want to have this fixed within a process within your organization that, well, if you are accessing sensitive data, you don't want everybody to be able to read it or to do something with it. Another important part that you can expect from a 21st century environment, a backup environment, is immutability. So you're not able to access data on the platform. You're not able to address a file system or do a telnet session or SSH session to the system and, hey, give me all the data stored. There's even a worm protected capability, which means that data stored on the platform can have a worm protection, like a sheet of glass being put on top of the data. And they have the proper certifications for it, that you can store it with confidence, and everything that's being stored on the appliance or in flight between the backup host or the target, or between systems, or between Cohesity and the cloud, everything is encrypted with a proper encryption. Important to tell is that the Cohesity technology was built around the concept of, we need to know what's inside the data we're storing on the system. And just like Google, we're storing data, but we need to know what's inside that data, what kind of information is available. And you can use that for detecting ransomware, but also use it for accessing of who's accessing what data, or use it as data auditing. What am I storing in this particular spot on the file system, and is that data compliant to let's say the access rights that people have to that folder or to that backup repository. But one of the main reasons Cohesity is accessing the data is because of detecting ransomware, which is a process running at Helios, which queries all the systems that are storing the data and pushing it into a machine learn driven process that does the anomaly detection and pinpoint where possible problems might arise or already have stroke. The deep visibility. So you need to know what you're storing. Is it important? Can the proper people access the data, or are people accessing data that they're not allowed to? And have data classifications and search, so that you know if someone comes with a restore request, that you can, wherever you are within the solution, you can fill in the name or a piece of the content in the document, or anything relating to the data you want to restore. You can fill it everywhere within the interface. You can fill it in, and it comes with a summary of results that you can directly do actions with, like restoring or browsing or making available. Last but not least, but that's what this webcast is about, is rapid and clean recovery. And that's what we're going to dive into a little deeper, is that everything is secure. We store the data, we worm locked it, only the proper people can access it, and we have a good insight on what we're storing. Now we want to recover it, and we want to be really clear on what we're recovering and how safe is it. So one of the third things is the clean recovery with Cyberscan. And after that, we'll go a little bit deeper into the instant mass restore and continuous data protection capabilities and site continuity. If we look at the Cyberscan, Cyberscan is a vulnerability scanning powered by Tengible. Tengible has a process created where they can scan virtual machines from Windows to Linux, different Linux distributions, and scan it on vulnerabilities like, is it properly patched? Are there any known 0 days? Are there other settings within the virtual machine that are not allowed to be to have it to give it a 100% certificate of ability to restore? And this is combined with the technology that Cohesity is providing to present a view of the backup to an external process, in this case the Tengible process, which all runs on top of the Cohesity appliance, and present that data to the Tengible process, and they're doing the scanning, and afterwards you see in a few dashboards what's happening. Are virtual machines that you just backed up, are they safe to recover? Are they properly patched? Is there anything residing within the VM that looks like ransomware? So the Cyberscan gives you the confidence, okay, when I go back to my to a former state because I need it, because of a disaster has happened, or we need to massively restore a lot of VMs, you know that the VMs that you recently backupped are safe to restore, or that you need to put them in a investigation mode to change something before you boot them up. This is a part of the application marketplace, the Cyberscan technology, and it's a combination of Cohesity and Tengible. One of the technologies that Cohesity is providing is their instant restore. When we look at a lot of other backup companies, and well, we've been around now for 15 years, and we know a little bit about the different backup technologies. We see that making virtual machines available or making data sets available can be a really challenging thing. Maybe not for one VM or one database, but if you want to be able to make a set of virtual machines, 10, 20, or even 100, it can be a really painstaking exercise, which can take a lot of time. And you need to recover it. A certain solution offer an NFS mount or other mounting capabilities, but you keep coping with the rehydration process that a lot of companies have, solutions have, because of their way of storing data. So it's not something you want to rely on if you're in trouble with the disaster recovery. So you see that other technologies are being added on top of certain backup technologies to make data more available again. If you look at the Cohesity solution, you see with their Cohesity Instant Restore, because Cohesity knows what they're ingesting from the backup, from a backup perspective, and they can store it at their liking to make it available as fast as possible. So if you initiate the Cohesity Instant Restore process, Cohesity presents the data to the virtualization host or to the database host or even directly to an end user. And you are able to speed up your instant restore capabilities in a tenfold. Not the actual backup data, but the cloned copy of the backup data is being presented to VMware or Hyper-V or an Oracle or SQL host. And because of the file system that Cohesity is using, it's a combination of bulky SATA disks and flash performance. Cohesity is able to position the right blocks into the flash layer to have the virtual machines or the databases boot up properly and run at a acceptable speed for recovery purposes, for DR and test purposes, for reporting purposes. So their instant restore capability is a really powerful one, and you can use it on almost every data set. Virtual machines, a cloned copy is being presented to the hypervisor based on NFS for VMware or SMB for Hyper-V. And you can have multiple VMs inside a site recovery that we will cover later. And you can boot them directly and have a restore being run in the background, which is certain storage vMotion that you do from the Cohesity appliance back to the recovery environment where you're running your virtual machines on. The same goes for the database. When you back up databases from SQL or Oracle, with the technology that Cohesity is providing, you are able to present this database back to its original server or to any database server with the proper software and credentials on it. And you can run the database directly from the Cohesity platform, flash accelerated, and do all kinds of dev test actions. And you can even use anonymization of data of certain tables that you can provide the backup that you make, let's say, every 50 minutes and present that to another part of in the company that uses the database for reporting, but you don't want certain data from a GDPR perspective available to those tests or to those reports. You can have in-flight anonymization of certain tables and certain data. Also, a very nice feature is that Cohesity makes backups of NAS or file systems and is able to present that data back as a NAS device or within its native SMB or NFS protocol. So you don't have to restore the data fully to have it operational again. Now, in certain cases, you can present the backed up file system data directly to the end user with the name of the original device being represented by Cohesity and preserving all the
NDMP protocol used to
no, NDMP is not being used. NDMP is a legacy protocol, but it can be very useful in certain cases. What Cohesity did is they created they call it a massive file scanner, which is a fork process. They start scanning a file system and then they fork the process to all the folders and subfolders, and they do it in parallel. There are multiple appliances with multiple processes that can access the data. So they can do a massive scan and collect the data that's needed. Within their own process, they can keep track of what they already backed up or what has changed. So that's one way to have a really fast backup of a large file system without having to use the NDMP technology. So that's some of the capabilities that Cohesity have for the instant restore. I see I need to speed up a little. For the next part that Cohesity is offering to have your data available with low RTO, RPO, it's important that you make multiple or even near zero backups or replications of the data. The continuous data protection option is a technology that Cohesity is working together with the VMware VAIO protocol or the VAIO environment that VMware is offering to fork the IOs that VMs are generating. So Cohesity has created a IO filter daemon that has another fork of the IO that the VM is producing to the storage system, and it's collecting it directly on their own appliance. So you don't need to have another system around where you store all the IOs and replicated IOs to. No, you can store it directly to the Cohesity appliance, and you can combine it with VADP backups. So you can have multiple instances to recover from. So there's a hydrated copy every 15 minutes. So that's a, let's say, a full copy that you can directly recover. All the in-between backups are replaying the logs back into one of the hydrated copies, and you are able to run a virtual machine and slide it back into time where you need the recovery to start again. And application consistency is coming. And not every application likes this way of collecting backup data. So that's something within the near future being made available. And you can use this for multiple virtual machines within an environment. Why is it important? Because not all applications require the same service level. You see a lot of situations where a company say, hey, I'm going to do all the data replicated to another system because, hey, I can't make it work to have different technologies inside my environment to cope with all the SLAs of the application. So I'm taking the most difficult one, and everybody can run within that SLA. That works, but it's pretty expensive. You need expensive replication or infrastructure or software technology that is within budget constraints that a lot of companies are having. Can be a quite difficult task. As we were mentioning earlier, that different applications require different SLAs, mission critical, business critical, or less critical applications. You need to have a whole set of, in legacy, different products that you need to use to offer these different service levels. You need to leverage the technology for snapshotting, use the backup platform. Hey, for continuous data replication, I need another technology. If I want to have a sync replication, I need to leverage the technology within my storage system. So that can be a really stacked up solution consisting of multiple products. And if you take a look at a lot of those disaster recovery scenarios, you see a production environment. And to create a mission critical VM replication, you need to add a lot of additional virtual machines to make that process happen, like VRAs and VRFs and all kinds of technology to collect all the data from the different virtual machines and have it shipped to the disaster recovery location. And on that disaster recovery location, you need to have all the hardware sized to cope with the disaster recovery and all the processes needed to keep everything in sync. Same goes for the journals of databases. And on top of that, or additional, you also need to make backups of these environments and have them replicated to the other side. It works, but it's pretty complicated, especially where am I going to put which technology? And due to that complexity, you see some missed SLAs or data loss because, hey, I thought this virtual machine or this process was in the replication technology. No, it's not in the backup. These kinds of discussions, we sometimes see them. Ultimately going to a higher TCO, higher costs of these kinds of solutions. What you need is a very easy to use method of collecting data with one solution that's capable of running all these different technologies from one single pane of glass. So in that case, we bring in Cohesity technology to use snapshot-based backup, not only on the VMware or on the Hyper-V level, but also leveraging snapshots from NetApp or Pure Storage or EMC storage, and combine that with a backup process, and also use the continuous data protection to collect the data needed for the mission critical systems that you want to have really short recovery times and recovery processes. Because of the Cohesity system being the collector of all the CDP data, you are able to run, based on the mass instant recovery, you are able to run the virtual machine directly from the platform and run it on your disaster recovery side. So you don't need all the different virtual machines that are managing the replication technology and all these additional storage that you need to reserve to have all those transaction logs being stored. You collect it to the Cohesity appliance and are able to push it directly to the disaster recovery side, and are also have the possibility to have the backup data being collected from snapshot-based backups or traditional backups and replicated to the platform at the disaster recovery side. That in the case your primary site fails, you're also capable of running your DR on your DR side with your DR Cohesity appliance that has all the data stored to do a restore. And all this technology is being managed by one interface, which can be a SaaS interface, Helios, or a private Helios that you run on your own environment. So with the Cohesity technology, we are able to deliver all the different technologies from backups to snapshots to continuous data replication and automatic sync, and have it merged into one solution where you are able to combine these technologies even for the same data set. So you can use CDP on and backup and mass instant restore on the same set of VMs that you are using to the same set of VMs can leverage the different technologies that are available. Not only this the backup, if you want to have just a backup copy, but you're also able to have shorter period of time, have a lot of different restore points of that same VM within the same interface. To tie this technology all together, Cohesity has created Site Recovery, which is a version 2 of their DR Runbook, which was an application that you run on the Cohesity appliance. And Cohesity Site Recovery is a drag and drop process which runs within Helios, and you can stack all the different capabilities you need. You can stack them together. So you create the program, you create the DR Runbook Sentry within the Helios environment. You drag and drop all the different capabilities that you need to have for this for the data set, like certain scripts that you need or certain delays or dependencies. You can drag and drop them easily and have the details being added and make a disaster recovery plan possible. Also, this site recovery software, you create it centrally, but in the case of an emergency, there might be no internet or connection to Helios, you are able to run this disaster recovery plan locally on the appliances that are part of your site recovery plan. Important is we also tell our customers, creating a plan is important, but testing your recovery capabilities is even more important, and you need to do that regularly. the whole site or subsets of the data. So IT environments change, and you need to embed those changes into your restore plan. So you are capable of running readiness tests and simulate DRs within this site recovery solution, and you can test everything that you created to be confident that when the shit hits the fan, you are able to push the button and have processes recover accordingly. And we look at the complete solution. So it's it supports all application tiers. You can offer near zero RTO and RPO for mission or business critical processes. The orchestration of the disaster recovery can leverage the CDP and the backup processes, and the replication process underneath takes care of moving the data around between the different sites, and you can do the failovers, the fallbacks, do all the testing you need from one interface, from one solution, thus creating a single business resiliency platform where Cohesity is offering a simplified operation with a unified policy engine. Everything you do within the environment, there is one way of doing it, which makes it easier to do. One of the important things is it has limitless scale. So if you need additional processes like additional storage or additional collecting or restoring capabilities, you can add non-disruptively additional nodes, being from Cohesity itself, or add the reference architecture hardware, or even spin up virtual machines and add them to the cluster to do add additional resources to have the DR run within the designated time. One of the things that you want is that there's no data loss, and you have and that you have reduced the downtime for the business. Automated failover and failback is something to give back the time to the IT staff in creating disaster recovery plans. If you click them within the site recovery application, you can test them easily and have less effort in changing the recovery process, because you can pick out one of the things that where it's going wrong or where the delay is, and you can pull it out, change it, and put it back in. So it's easier to do the testing, and it's easier to do all the management around your DR capabilities. Important is that there's an agentless deployment, so you don't need to add all kinds of different agents to different processes to run. It's one, if there's an agent involved, there's only one agent, it's a universal one, or we use all the different technologies that the hard and software providers like FIO, VRDP, snapshotting, replication, we leverage all those technology to be part of the disaster recovery process. And in the process, we also protect against ransomware because of the system the data is being stored at, which is constantly monitoring on malicious code or anomalies within the environment. So this is what Cohesity is offering as part of their solution. And that's something I would like to emphasize. There is a bit more coming from DMP. Everybody knows about our DMP DMaaS, Data Management as a Service.
Casper?
Yeah.
There was also a question about Cohesity, if it's cooperating with other backup solutions like Commvault, or is it a solution on its own? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a solution on its own. It can, so it manages the backup process by collecting the data and storing the data and replicating the data. So it's a backup appliance in one solution, but it's also capable of working together with other backup vendors. The Cohesity solution is also a scalable file system with deduplication and compression embedded within the file system. So it's possible to have a Commvault or a Symantec or current backup process. Veeam is a very interesting part, and shove a Cohesity system underneath to have efficient storage capabilities like deduplication and compression, and also be able to replicate data and make data available again to on the other side. So yes, you can leverage Cohesity technology in combination with certain applications that lack a certain purpose, a certain technology. And well, Veeam is one of the most interesting ones because there a lack of a proper deduplication process. So we have a few situations where we put in a Cohesity storage facility underneath a Veeam backup process. To get back to the DMP DEMAS solution, which is also the name Cohesity gave to their as a service backup process, data management as a service. We've been there first, so that's why we're still keeping the name DMP DEMAS. And what you can expect is that there is going to be a date. Oh, that's going a bit too fast. That there's going to be a DEMAS backup solution combined with the instant recovery capabilities that I just showed you and the site recovery, where you are able to run recoveries within the DMP cloud as a secondary location to, if you're not able to provide them yourself because of budget restraints, or you just cut out your secondary data center. But we are able to provide all the resources necessary to facilitate the disaster recovery scenario, and we can use the Cohesity technologies that I just presented and leverage them within our DEMAS solution. I say soon because we are currently building a replication environment for the Cohesity data, and after that you are able to purchase a Cohesity appliance for the on-site and have it connected to our environment in our cloud to for replication or for cloud archival or long-term storage of backup data. We're not the only ones doing this. Cohesity recently introduced their Fort Knox capabilities, which is a data isolation and recovery as a service. A lot of questions from customers are now talking about, hey, I have a primary location and I want to have an air-gapped offsite copy of my data, which is immutable and offline. Well, everybody says, okay, that's a tape, but not everybody wants to use a tape. So there are other technologies around that you can leverage to have a air-gap solution with offline capabilities, but in a online storage environment. And the technology is warm technology, and Cohesity has leveraged the technology from Amazon in creating a isolated data vault where you can replicate the data to the Cohesity Fort Knox environment and use all the security features necessary to protect that data from malicious code or people or processes that want to destroy this data or do nasty things with it. So the Fort Knox technology features a isolated vault, which is, as they say, virtually air-gapped. So Cohesity is managing the connection between the Fort Knox environment and the on-premise situation. It's completely isolated on a network and on a management level. They use that with the current controlled recovery, which is the, as I was mentioning, the business logic workflows, where you can say, hey, I want this data set to be changed, its retention. There are 2 or 3 people within my organization that needs to validate that request. So This process is completely embedded within the Fort Knox capabilities, and it works with access tokens, and there is no direct access to the vault, so there's no direct access to the storage. There's always a process in between, which is a controlled environment. Important to mention is that all the data being stored is locked based on the object locking mechanism that AWS is offering, which is an S3 protocol set that ensures locking the data indefinitely or for a certain period of time that you set in advance. And there's no way that AWS or anybody else can tamper with that data. So it has offline attributes in an online environment. All the data is encrypted at rest, but also in flight to the cloud. So no spoofing capable. There's a ransomware protected process running over the data to detect anomalies and to report on possible encryption outbreaks. So you can do the proper messaging, and soon to be added to the Fort Knox capabilities is that you can recover within the Fort Knox environment. So you copy the data to Fort Knox, you are able to use the site recovery technology, which is a next feature within the Fort Knox capabilities, and you can run these DR recoveries or recovery processes within the AWS cloud as a secondary site where you use the storage that you written down to the Fort Knox repositories, and use that data in creating a disaster recovery environment for your data and for your processes. I see I kept it within time. If there are any questions, I would like to ask the questions. If not, I would like you to save the date in your calendar. Thursday, 6th October in this year, we are having IT in Motion for customers outside of the Netherlands. There's going to be an alternative program or alternative IT in Motion event, but you will be informed on that. For the Dutch customers, IT in Motion will be held in Bunnik. DMP is existing for 15 years now, so that's something to celebrate. So we want to invite you all on this day for information sharing, meeting up with the people at DMP, and having a fantastic dinner afterwards and a party for anybody who would like to have a party. So for that, I think that concludes my presentation.
Yeah, there is one question, or actually two. One is about the Helios app.
Yeah.
If it's all web-based or if it's also locally available.
Yeah, it's Helios is it's a SaaS application, so it's web-based for starters, and a lot of functionality is being added to the SaaS Helios application. But the functionality of Helios, the central management, is also can also be provided as a virtual machine that you can run within your own environment. So you can lock it off from internet or other external resources, and only use it for internal management of your systems within your own security bubble. So it's both. One thing you need to keep in mind is that functionalities like ransomware scanning and all the capabilities of Fort Knox are not capable of running in the on-premise variety. So that's one thing to keep in mind, but all the other management stuff can be done from your own data center.
And another question, who the cloud providers are. Is DMP Cloud also included? And is there a private cloud option?
There is a for the Fort Knox functionality. It's a technology that only resides on AWS. For Cohesity as a solution, you can run the Cohesity processes within your own cloud as a virtual machine, or you can run it within Google, Amazon, Azure. So you can spin up Cohesity technology in those clouds and use those clouds for disaster recovery or for restore space or collect backup data from those clouds. DMP is adding their cloud to this capability and offering additional DMP services like DMP DEMAS DR services, where we provide you with a disaster recovery process that we write up together, create a DR plan, create a DR runbook, do all the tests necessary, have every year test all the DR capabilities and update everything accordingly if needed. So that's a service we deliver on top of the technology that Cohesity is providing. Any other questions?
No, no other questions here.
I would like to thank everybody for sticking with me for the past hour. And if there you can